All right. Hello and welcome to the Swift Race Place. I'm Kate Fravel, and with me today is Chris Ovenden, one of the Veganuary race organizers, and one of our co hosts today. He was with us last week for stage 2 on RGV, and he's back again this week for some expert commentating. Um, so we have a couple things that we want to go over to start with. We're going to take a look at some favorites, the course, as well as some results. So I think we'll start it off with the course, if that's all right with you, Chris. And first, I'm going to go over to the Velo viewer here. All right, so this week's course is the Innsbruck KOM after party. And this course is 37.2 kilometers long, 23.1 miles, with an elevation gain of 640 meters. That's 2,100 feet for our viewers using the Imperial system. Chris, what do you think some of the key points on this course will be today?
Well, key points on it's sort of a race of two halves here, because we've got the 3 laps of the Innsbruckring, and there it's mostly flat. It's going to be really quick from the get-go, but then we've got the leg snapper. So there's a short hill in the middle of the lap, maybe a little bit towards the end, and that's where it's really going to blow apart. I'm expecting to see the stronger riders pushing some big watts there to try and lose the lighter riders and get an advantage, because then we get to the second half of the race, and you can see it on the Velo viewer there, dominating the whole screen is that big KOM at the end. It's about 7.5 kilometers long. It goes up and down, up and down. So there are some flat parts there, but it's certainly going to be a test for the legs, and the heavier riders are going to struggle there, and they are going to want to have a couple of minutes maybe even on the lightest riders in this if they want to get to the top first.
Yep. And some additional stats on that KOM, we have an average gradient of 5.4% and a max gradient of 10.4%. So it really does kick up there at one point on the climb, actually multiple points throughout the climb, but the average gradient around 5%, 5.5%. Not really 100% draftable, so we'll definitely see the climbers coming to the front there. And that climb alone has an elevation gain of 399 meters. That's 1,309 feet. So the majority of the climbing coming from that climb there. There is, as Chris mentioned, the leg snapper, which does contribute a little bit to some of the elevation out on course. And
it's really interesting to see some of the bike choices here. I'm sat in the B pen at the moment, and it's a real mix between, we've got some Tron bikes there, we've got some Tarmac Pros, it looks like some Tarmac SL7s. So a real mix of some people going for, a pure aero setup, thinking I'm going to make the gains on the Innsbruckring, really push hard there, and then others thinking, no, I'm going to save myself a bike that I can use on that KOM to really claw back any disadvantage I have.
And then finally, I tried to make some estimated times. I think our Cat A's will do it pretty fast, around 16 to 17 minutes, maybe out to 20 minutes, just depending on how fast they're pushing up there. Cat B's, I think we're looking around 19 to 20 minutes up the climb. Cat C's was a little slower and also a little bit harder to figure out, not as much data on the Cat C's. But I'm thinking 25 to 35 minutes. I know it's a pretty big range, but that was kind of the best I could come up with. And Cat D's should be around 35 to 37 minutes. So we'll be watching for those kind of times up the KOM. And now I just want to mention, before we switch over to some of our favorites and results, that there will be sprint points for the fastest time through the sprint point just after the leg snapper, and KOM points for the first over the line. And I know the breakdown on the KOM is 20, 15, 10, and so on, with max points in the sprint competition at 12 points. So riders will have 3 laps to try and set that fastest sprint time. And I'm going to head on over to our men's favorites now. So in the A race, we have Adam C., one of the Team Vegan Antelopes rider. Let's see, I picked Adam C. because he's definitely a lighter rider, and it looks like he is currently sitting number 4 in the GC. He's doing quite well in the KOM, sitting in first place. So he is our current king of the mountain as well. Then we have over in Cat B, you can see Jerome Spielmans from the LEQP squad. He's doing quite well in the Cat B as well. Number 1 in the GC, although he is back in number 11 spot in the KOM. We haven't had any real climbs out on course quite yet. This is our first real climb of the day, so I don't think that really dictates too much yet. And you can see Patrick Harvey, our C favorite, and Nathan Tully, a junior rider from the SDW youth squad. He's definitely light, I believe around like 45 kilograms. So definitely be watching for him on that final climb as well. Lighter riders do tend to perform better. All right, over in the women's favorites, our A race, the only A rider racing is Alice Lethbridge in the women's cat. And Chris, I think you gave me some unfortunate news about her earlier, if I'm not mistaken, right? We heard that Alice Lethbridge did not complete last race, so she will not be eligible for the GC, but still eligible for the sprint and KOM competitions. Correct, Chris?
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, she didn't compete last week, so she's out of the team and the GC. But and I think that means that's the end of the A category women's GC, because unfortunately all the women missed at least one race. But certainly the sprint and the KOM competition we can try to keep going.
Then we have Jane Geddes from the Vegan Badgers, Evelyn Bunick, and then in our D race, I wanted to talk about, I believe that's Ladine Unser was my favorite pick there, and she's doing extremely well, almost sweeping the field. Number 1 in the GC and number 1 in the KOM. One thing that I thought was really interesting there was that Fiona Thompson seems to be a really strong rider in that women's D-Cat, but she seems to be targeting the sprint because she is leading the green jersey competition right now, bumping Unser down to second place. And I think Fiona Thompson could have a real shot at the win today if she doesn't go for that sprint point. So we'll just have to see what she targets, because Fiona Thompson could easily be a favorite today as well. So first, I want to start with our Cat A GC results. Chris, you want to talk about these a little bit? Not sure if you have this pulled up, but
Sorry, I just muted myself there while you were talking, Cade. Yeah, so I've got that pulled up. So obviously at the top there, we've got Chris Smart from the No Pins R3R team, but it's only half a second back to Oliver Milk in the men's GC. So, you know, it's everything to play for there in Cat A. We've got HGB from the Team Vegan Alpacas, less than a second back, and then Adam C again a second back, Hywell Davies a second and a half back. So it's so tight at the top of that AGC race, and I think this course particularly is going to turn that on its head somewhat, and there's a real opportunity for those riders who are maybe a couple of seconds back, probably down to 20 with just 10 seconds from that top group. They could definitely be making some big gains there on that KOM.
And just moving on real quick to the Cat B women's GC, we are running a little bit low on time here, just about 5 minutes to the start of the A race. So we're not going to have time for quite as many fields. But real quick, the Cat B women's GC, there is only 3 riders racing here, and I think I chose this one because of the commanding lead from Jane Geddes, the vegan bobcat. She has 7 minutes to the rest of the field. But I also thought this competition was interesting because second and third, even though they're 7 minutes back, they're within 7 seconds of each other. So it'll be a real battle for second place in our Cat B women's GC. And then real quick, we're going to check in with the Cat C team GC results. Chris, I don't know if you have these pulled up. I know I chose this because of the fierce battle between BRT and TFC. TFC was leading after the first race, and now it's over to BRT. Anything you find interesting from this table?
Yes, I mean, you're right to pick on that battle there. You can see that BRT have 6 riders counting, in their team still, with 4 of those counting towards the overall time. TFC are down to 5, so only 3 of those riders' times will count. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to look through the squad to see who's the lighter, but yeah, there's every chance of TFC taking that back. We've got the Vegan Crocodiles next, 3 minutes back, and Team Italy 4 minutes back. Now, this is if they're going to bring that back, this is the course to do it on, ready for that Queen stage in race 4.
Yeah, I agree. And the overall gap in this field is 10 minutes from BRT back to the art isotypes. And I thought that was interesting, especially because from 1st to 8th, the gap is about 5-6 minutes, and then it goes back another 4 or 5 minutes to the art isotypes. But I'm going to switch on over now. This was a new competition added just last week. This is our Cat D women's green jersey standings, led by Fiona Thompson. And I was just talking about this fierce race a little bit earlier when I was talking about some of our favorites on the day. And Fiona Thompson was that rider I was talking about who seems to be targeting the sprint competition as opposed to going for some stage wins or even going after the GC. I think she is, I'm not sure, but she's like 7th, I think, in the GC right now. So she's not quite in contention for that. And I'm just wondering if we'll see her go for a stage win today, because she definitely has a shot at it, or if she'll keep targeting this green jersey, because she's dominating here as well. And I know our points are off in the table here. I'm not sure what that issue was, but I'm just going to check real quick. Yeah, it looks like from what I can see on my notes, the first 2 places are within 1 point, even though they're not being shown on the table. And yeah, first place, so Fiona Thompson is as far back as 7th place in the GC. So we'll see if she tries to make up some spots in the GC or if she continues to go for this green jersey. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, well, that'll be really interesting to see. We've got Fiona Thompson and Ladine Unser at the top of that women's sprint, and then a bit of a jump down to Mary Swindles. So that's a 39, 38, and then 24. If you look at the women's QOM competition, it's almost on its head. So we've got Ladine Unser in the lead with 12 points. Fiona Thompson currently in 3rd. So maybe she has decided, you know what, I'm going to focus on pushing those sprint points and pushing for that KOM. Of course, in this race, the QOM is going to be a lot longer. So it'll be interesting to see how she strategizes that, and if she maybe just prioritizes the sprint.
Yep. And speaking of I have the KOM results up here, not the QOM results. I had one of the women's results here and one of the men's. So here is the men's Cat D KOM results, polka dot jersey. And I thought this was kind of an interesting competition because right now Ryan Began of Team Type 1 is leading here, and the first 3 places are separated by only 3 points. Actually, I wanted to include this in the stream. I thought you might know the answer to this, Chris. How do you separate ties in these competitions? Because I can see farther down, for example, 7th and 8th place both have 6 points. 9th and 10th both have 4. So how do you separate a tie in this case?
Yeah, we do it by time as to who got to the finish first, most likely, or who went through the banner first. I think that's something certainly we'll have to think about as we go through and see if there are any ties. Luckily, there's no ties at the top yet. And we'll have to see what data Zwift Power gives us, because that's one of the limitations we've found doing this competition is the data that we can actually grab from Zwift Power. But it's likely to be that if there is a case of a tie, we'll find a way to do that through the times of the riders and how well they did in the rest of the race.
Okay, that sounds good. And I think people will be happy with that system for determining ties, because it seems like the best way to make a distinction between those 2 places. So I just wanted to add with this Cat D KOM competition that Ryan Began, the rider at the top, his power numbers indicate more of a sprinter. And if we look farther down on the table, we see a lot of the SWD youth team members in this table. I believe there's 3 of them: Nathan Tully, Ollie Fussell, and Henry Bottoms. And these kids are all really light, and they're definitely classified as climbers in my book. So it'd be interesting to see if they can move up a little. They already have some base points down from the first 2 races. All right, our A race is just starting now, so I'm going to switch over to that with Highwell Davies in the A race. Okay, it looks like our A racers are off to a fast start, pushing just over 5 watts per kilograms here. And as we've said previously, they'll do 3 laps of the Innsbruckring course before heading up the KOM. So that's really what we should be focusing on for the first half of this race here. Hywell Davies, definitely one of the favorites coming into the race. He's done quite well. I believe, I don't know, Chris, do you know where Hywell Davies sits in the overall GC yet?
Yeah, so he's currently 5th in the GC, and he's just 1.2 seconds off that first position. So he'll definitely be targeting a win here and wanting to distance some of his competition.
All right. Yep, thanks for that statistic, because that definitely, Hywell Davies definitely within reach of a top GC position here. He already has a top 5 position, but he will be gunning for the win, is my guess. All right, so I think I'm going to try and switch over to our B race soon, but first I just want to note that I do see Alice Lethbridge in this front pack, so she is racing today, which is definitely a good thing for those women's competitions, even though we may have seen the death of the women's GC last race. So Chris, which riders do you think will excel on the leg snapper this first lap? Because it's a climb, but it's a short effort that suits sprinters sometimes. Do you think we'll see more of a sprinter's presence at the top of that climb, or some of the lighter riders?
Well, I think it's going to be a mix, Kate, because some of those lighter riders can still put out some mean power, especially in the A group. And I'm expecting to see, upwards of sort of 10, 11 watts maybe in the A group up that leg snapper to really put the hurt on the pack and try to break it up before the sprint. I think similarly in the B, you're going to see some big watts, maybe 8 or 9 watts a kilo all the way, probably only about a 30-second sprint. They've got to do it 3 times, of course, so they've got to measure the effort slightly. But some of these riders are going to know that if they can get to the top of there with a small group, they can pull away and they can recover on the rest of the lap.
Yep, and the other interesting part about this course is that the sprint comes right after the leg snapper, pretty much at the base of the descent. There's not that much room to recover, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of numbers the riders are actually pushing up the leg snapper. They might be pushing really hard, trying to get away, take a fast sprint time, but my guess is that we'll see a slightly more chill leg snapper so that riders who are targeting the sprint point have some left in the gas to try and make a fast time through the sprint, especially because going off the front on the leg snapper is not the best strategy if you want to set a fast sprint time. Using the drafting effects of the pack, probably the smartest strategy. Coming from the back to the front through the sprint is the smartest strategy to try and get a fast time for the intermediate here. So I have a feeling we won't see as many riders trying to go off the front on the leg snapper as you might in a standard 3 laps of Innsbruckring.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Ken. I mean, you're quite right there. And I think some of the riders will have to juggle between what do they want to focus on here? Is it the GC and the team GC? In which case they'll push hard there to try and make a bit of a gap so that they can get to that KOM first at the second half of the race? Or do they think, no, I want to stay with a really big group so that I can push through and get those sprint points?
Yeah, it'll be an interesting dilemma for some riders. I just moved over to our D race now, and it looks like we did have a rider off the front. That is Johnny Rocket from the Finesse Squad, and I don't believe he's a sign-up. I don't know if you know of that, Chris, but I was looking for favorites earlier, and I was only including sign-ups. I did see Johnny Rocket on Zwift Power, and I don't believe he's an official sign-up. So, great attack by him, but he will not be taking a spot in the GC. Some other riders up here include Karel Smeets. That's one of our favorites in the B race today. In the B race, they go off a minute after the A race, right, Chris?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's a minute between each category, so they're separated out. I've just noticed, I've just been following, it's a bit of an update for you, the race in D, and Ryan Began, who was our leader in the KOM QM competition, is actually falling back a bit. He's in 36th at the minute. So the other riders ahead of him are definitely putting the hurt on him, that leader in the climbing competition, hoping maybe to get to that KOM first. And if he can't get to the top of that first, he's not getting any points.
Yeah. And another thing, I just kind of along those lines, we will most likely see a pretty big mix up in the KQOM competitions today, as our two climbs so far have been the Aqueduct KOM and the Preem and Crit City, both of which are quite short, probably not even as much of a climb as the Leg Snapper is. So this will be the first real climb of Veganuary, and it'll be interesting to see which riders can really tackle this and take it head on. And right now, I'm just watching in the Rick Wanger in the B race, and he's riding for the Finesse Rockets squad. I don't think that team is signed up, but he does run the channel No Breakaways, so great to see him out there racing. All right, I'm gonna try and switch over to our D race now, because Chris said that there's a little bit of interesting action there. Our KOM leader falling off the back, so I'm gonna try and head over to the D race. Who is the KOM leader in the D race, Chris?
It's Ryan Began. So I think last time I checked, he'd just fallen back to about 40th. So I'll see if I can get back to him as well. He's the Team Type 1 rider. And yeah, he's back in 42 now. And again, he's just got a group that have just pushed away from him. So maybe he's thinking, I'm going to save the legs for that hill at the end. I want to be able to push hard there. But, you know, if he lets too much distance get ahead, away in front of him, he may not be scoring any points on that climb, even if he can do it very quickly.
Yeah, that is a good point there. And I'm in the front group currently, and Began is definitely not here. I'm just scanning the side, and I do see Ollie Fussell, Nathan Tully, and I believe maybe one other SDW youth rider in this front group. Those were the three riders I was talking about who had a chance to take the lead in the KOM competition this race, and they have all made the split into the front group, whereas our current KOM leader, Ryan Began, has not. So that'll be an interesting shakeup if they can hold this gap to KOM leader Ryan Began. And right now, I'm just watching Jimbo from the TFC squad. I believe he is leading the GC. Am I correct on that in the D race?
Is this indeed? Yeah, he's leading individual GC. Just 1 second back to Stefan O'Ryan, but actually Stefan, we found out this week, has leveled himself up to Cat C, so he's now moved into the Cat C category. So our next rider then is Ladine Unser, who's our female rider. So it's really great to see a woman rider there taking second spot in the individual GC, just 3 seconds back. So we'll have to see how she can do there. In fact, sorry, I do apologize. 3 minutes back, it looks like.
Yeah, I believe it's quite a gap in the D race. Right now, I just moved over to Ollie Fussell, the SDW youth rider, and unfortunately, he had a power dropout last week, which means that he will no longer be eligible for the GC. So he may be putting all of his chips on the table for today's KOM points, because he's no longer eligible for that GC race, and we'll see if he goes off the front for the KOM race today.
In fact, what we're doing in Veganuary is when people have those dropouts mid-ride and we can see that going on, what we do is we give them the last place time for that race. So we take the last place rider and we just put them behind. So it's a bit like they've limped in with the team car or something like that. They would have changed the bike, you know. Obviously, you can't do that in Zwift because once you're out, you can't log back in. So he is actually still in the GC competition, but he is now down in 26th because of that slow time. So he's got a bit of a way to climb back. And I think you're probably right that he's now going to focus on that sprint and KOM competition.
Yep. And the other thing I saw was, I believe I saw Ladine Unser, our favorite in the women's race in this front group as well. So she also made the split today, and that's definitely a positive for her. I'm not sure if Fiona Thompson, the other racer I was talking about who might challenge in the women's race, also made the split. So we'll just have to see. But it looks like a couple of our D racers have come back to the main pack here. And I think we're going to stick with the D racers until the leg snapper. They're just approaching that now. I believe our other categories are already on or past the leg snapper. Our A's might have even come through the sprint point already. So I'm curious to see what it looks like in the D sprint competition and women's sprint competitions after this. And we should definitely be keeping an eye out for Fiona Thompson. that rider I was talking about earlier, she has been targeting that green jersey in the women's sprint competition, and we'll just have to see if she goes for it again. I'm not sure if she has made this front group, but if she has, keep an eye out for her going for that sprint. The other thing is, I believe once we get closer to the sprint, we'll have the little pop-up leaderboard on the left, and we should be able to see our fastest times from the A race there once that pops up. But the racers just coming through the cobbles here, they've distanced the group behind, and it's time to start the leg snapper in just a few moments. Chris, what do you think we'll see from this D category?
Well, I think I'm not sure what the watts per kilo will go up to, but I'm expecting to see some of the riders here really pushing the pace, trying to whittle this group down. I can't see quite how many we've got here, maybe 40 in this group. I'm currently with Ladine Unser, who's just a little bit towards the back of this, so maybe she's hoping to get a nice push through and a bit of a draft. It's reasonably steep, this, but there should still be some draft on this.
I'm currently watching, yeah, to your point, it's about 8% gradient here, but it doesn't stay quite that steep the entire way. So maybe some draft. But I'm currently with Christopher Price. We interviewed him, and we showed his interview last race. He was a really nice guy racing for Team Type 1, and he is up here in this front group as well. He doesn't have the highest Zwift power ranking, but he's definitely been finishing above his Zwift power ranking. And he's performing really well on this climb, up there with some of our lighter riders. See Henry Bottoms of the SDW Youth Squad now up here as well, but I think the real rider to watch right now is Ollie Fussell. He's got a couple seconds to the riders behind, and he's already showing what he's made of on the climbs through this leg snapper, putting some hurt on the riders behind. So Ollie Fussell's just about to come around the top here.
He's going to be having a really nice ride up the leg snapper. Look, he's pushing just over 4 watts a kilo, which is pretty huge for a D rider. Obviously, the category ending at 2.5, but that was only about 100 watts for him, 120 watts, something like that. You know, and now there he just pushed up to 6 with about 150. Maybe that was a gear change. Interesting to see if he can keep this gap now as he comes down this hill, and if the strategy will pay out, because I think those heavier riders that are behind him may well sweep this back up. And all that effort will have gone to waste if they can then thrash him through, really push through the sprint section.
And right there, just as you said, Jimbo from the TFC squad blew by him like he was nothing. Jimbo then just drops down to 0 watts while Ollie has to sprint to get back on his wheel. So the one disadvantage to being a lighter rider is, yes, you can climb faster, but you descend much slower. Jimbo was able to sweep him up pretty easily there. And just looking at the weight difference right now, Jimbo currently weighs 103 kilograms, whereas Ollie Fussell, the rider that was just off the front, checking for him, I don't see him in the sign-up, so that's just a mistake. But
if it's any help, Kate, I was just watching their watts, and that can give us an indication. And Jimbo, when he was pushing about 2 watts a kilo, is doing over 200 watts. And then, 200 watts for Ollie Fussell would be about 6 to 8 watts a kilo. So the weight difference is massive. And those pure watts on the downhill and the flat are really going to help Jimbo to set a huge time on this sprint. So I'm really excited to see what happens here now.
Yeah, so am I. All right, here we go. I found his profile, and I'll just take a look at that here. So it looks like Ollie Fussell weighs 28.5 kilograms. So really light rider there. But I'm looking at the sprint point right now, and Christopher Price has gone off the front hard. I was just talking about this rider earlier, and he's putting in big gaps, a second to the rest of the field. We can see Leon O'Regan set the fastest time. I think that was from the A race. But Christopher Price with a great time for the Team Type 1 racers. And he's now got about 3 seconds. We'll see if he tries to hold this or if he just falls back to the rest of the pack.
Yeah, I think it'd definitely be a good idea to fall back. I mean, he put in a huge effort there. I could see 10 watts a kilo, which is a pretty decent sprint for a B rider. And he's got that time, but it's definitely going to come back together, I would imagine. And I think it'd be much better now to work as a group, this little small group of maybe 5 or 6, distance the group behind, and really just consolidate that work he's done on the leg snapper to try and pull away for the KOM.
All right, I realize we're going down a bit of a rabbit hole here with our D racers, so I'm going to switch back over to the A race so we don't lose track of any of our other categories quickly here. But the D race, definitely an interesting race to watch, and we'll be back with them later on in the stream. But for now, I'm with Hywell Davies, sitting right around top 10, top 20 spot in our A pack. And I also saw Leon Reagan in this front group. He was the rider that set the fastest time through that sprint on lap 1 through the sprint point.
And look, we've still got a huge look at the difference between the D race and the A race, Cade. With the A race, I think we're looking at a group here. They're all bunched together, so it's hard to see, but maybe 60 riders still in the group, really pushing hard, 53 kilometers an hour. It's only -1 gradient, so they are pushing serious watts here to get this. And the power of that blob is just propelling them along at incredible speeds. It's not going to be long before they get to the leg snapper, and I'm really interested to see the kind of watts that they push here as well.
And also, yes, I definitely agree, and I think we need to watch them over the leg snapper this time around. They're on their second lap through Innsbruckring here. But real quick, I just wanted to mention, if I am not present in the live chat, I just want to apologize for that. My chat's having a little bit of a malfunction right now, so I'm not going to be active in the live chat, but I can see everything you guys are chatting. I can try and address those if you guys have any questions. But now, back to the race. When the riders hit the cobbles here, I mean, depending on which category, it's about a minute out from the leg snapper for our A racers, I would guess. So they'll be approaching that leg snapper really soon. They're just coming through the town here, and it'll be interesting to see if we have a rider try and go off the front, like Ollie Fussell did in the D race. Another thing I want to mention is I see a lot of the Team Vegan jerseys up towards the front here as well. It's another really nice thing to see. All right, I'm going to move up farther towards the front of the group. Anything you want to call out in this field, Chris?
Well, I just saw you were saying there were some Team Vegan riders there. I could see Luis Medeiros, who's one of our riders. He's a bit of a diesel engine, is Luis. And so I'm expecting him to do very well on the climb if he can make it there with this front group. Interested to see what he can put out on this leg snapper, actually. And we're just coming into it now. Just turning the corner, it's going to start to really kick up here. So let's see what kind of wattage these riders are putting out. It may be that the front want to just put the hurt on a bit, just put the sphere into the people behind. I can see 8 watts a kilo, 6 watts a kilo, 8, really ramping up at the front there, up to 9, some of these riders, and you can see a lot of feathers being dropped. So they're definitely wanting to get this over and done with very quick, put some distance into this group, and maybe split it up, because 70 riders is just far too many for comfort.
Yep, and I just want to mention I'm in with Leonard Tugels right now of the BZR SPS D squad, and he is not a sign-up, but he is a really great rider. I actually made a video with him a little while back. He gave one of our coaching tips series, and he is kind of famous for going long. He likes to make really long attacks, although he most likely won't need to in today's race, as the final climb will suit him. But now I'm up in the front, and we see 3 no-pins R3R riders, Scott Gleason, Brierly, and I'm losing track of the other riders on the leaderboard, but a few no-pins R3R riders coming to the front of this pack. And also seeing riders like Eddie Houle from the Cryo RDT squad, another great rider there. And it looks like some riders are falling off the back just a little bit. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so it's really strong out there. You can see it's got an all snaking. The elastic started to break. Scott Gleason that you picked up on there, he is still in the GC standings. He's currently sitting 21st, a minute 16 behind. So again, he's one of the riders. You could see he was pushing hard at the front of that leg snapper, trying to break the elastic, trying to get away, and trying to get that advantage on the KOM, where he's going to try and claw back that 1 minute, just over 1 minute deficit to the leader.
Yep, definitely Scott Gleason is one to watch. A minute and a half is a little bit bigger of a gap than I would expect from Scott Gleason, to be honest.
1:15, I think. But actually, the leader I just noticed is Chris Smart from the No Pins team. So he's wanting to claw back that really for the Team GC, I would imagine. And here they come into the sprint now. So let's see what this blob can do. I think we already saw a lot of the power-ups used there. So it doesn't look like a huge effort here. It looks like they're just taking it a bit easier. Maybe they've already done the work on the first lap to try and get that fastest time. If we just pop back a few to the group that's following, again, I don't think they're pushing too hard. So maybe they've decided, look, second lap, we've already pushed hard up that leg snapper. Let's take it easy, try and rest the legs a little bit for that KOM. Maybe we'll see some faster times on the next lap.
Well, I do want to mention real quick, Highwell Davies did go off the front. He's got about 4 seconds right now, but he only managed to set the 6th fastest time, and my guess is that that is largely due to the fact that he did not have the pack to draft off of through the sprint. Going off the front, not always the smartest strategy when you're trying to set a fastest time, but I'm going to head back with our C race real quick right now. I don't think we've even seen them quite yet, and they're just heading in, about to hit the cobbles here, so they're approaching the leg snapper as well, and it's a much smaller group in the C race than we saw in the A race, so we're going to stick in with them until their trip through the sprint point, I think. See, P. Cook from Team Vegan is going off the front. Not sure if that is a sign up or not, but as it's a Team Vegan rider, I'd say it's probably pretty likely. Pushing over 4 watts per kilograms here. A decent number in the C race, and it looks like about 1 watt per kilogram higher than most of the other riders. So P. Cook leading out into the leg snapper. You think there'll be any difference in the dynamic going into the leg snapper for our Cat Cs, Chris?
Well, it's hard to say, isn't it? I still think this is a smaller group, so perhaps they'll think, look, we don't need to push quite as hard on this lap. There's not as much need to drop riders from this group. But this is Zwift, and basically every hill is going to hurt. So I'm still expecting to see some big numbers here. Maybe not quite as big as that A race, but certainly up into the 6s and 7s from some of the front riders. So I'm really interested to see what the front of this race can do.
So am I, and I'm just trying to move up towards the front of this race right now. In fact, looks like this is Karen Loomis, the cryogen rider, and also one of our female riders out on course. Great to see her up here at the front. And one of the other things is, in our lower categories, I was taking a look at Zwift Power earlier today, just filtering by 20-minute watts per kilograms, trying to look for some of our best climbers when I was trying to pick out some favorites earlier today. And in the lower categories, C and D, a lot of those fastest climbers are women because they're lighter, and the climbs just suit them a little better than some of these flat-out races on the flats. I see Patrick Harvey coming up here from the BRT squad as well. So it'll be interesting to see. I think, was it the D race, Chris, where our second place in the GC is a female racer?
Yeah, that's right. That's Ladine Unser. I was just watching one of our vegan riders, Evelyn Bunnock. I think she's leading or at least she's very close to the top of the C women's GC. I think it might be Cheryl Muldoon, another vegan rider who is ahead of that there. I haven't seen Cheryl, so Evelyn Bunnock doing incredibly well here, currently sitting 11th. She's gotten over the leg snapper in pretty much the front group. There's a couple off the front, but I'm expecting to see them come back. And she's dropped her aero a bit early, maybe just thinking she needs to get that to keep up with these guys here. So maybe we won't see some faster sprint times now, but definitely some big watts being put out there, and you can see that group has been blown completely apart.
I'm just in with Chisholm McDonald right now, actually, and he is definitely a heavier rider than some of the other riders in the C race, and he was bridging the gap up to that front group, those riders that had broken off, so it's starting to come back together a little now. Chisholm McDonald's in the red and white, for those of you watching who aren't quite sure who I'm talking about. He's just a little farther up on the screen now and definitely moving fast through the descents. One of the interesting things that I've seen also here is some of the heavier riders are able to super tuck off of the off of the leg snapper, whereas a rider like me, I'm right around 40 kilograms, so quite light, but I would not be able to get into a super tuck off of that leg snapper. I don't quite get enough speed. It'd be a pretty risky move for me to try and super tuck there. So another advantage to the heavier riders coming into this sprint point. They're able to carry a little more speed than some of our lighter riders, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And down that hill, the heavier riders just clearly have the advantage. They carry so much more momentum. Actually, the downhill, we'd have to find a rider, and perhaps we can watch it in the D race. When they go down that hill, it's very steep, and then it kicks back up again. And as a lighter rider, you're going to have to put out some serious watts to keep that speed. Whereas the heavier riders are just almost going to roll over that without even doing any work. So, they're going to suffer on the KOM, but certainly this part of the course, it's really all for the heavier, more powerful riders.
Yep, definitely. And I just want to mention before we head back with the D race, D Hill making a great move there. He started his sprint at the back of the pack and passed pretty much every rider in the pack. I think he just missed one of them. So D Hill with a smart tactic there, trying to use the draft advantage from the pack. And I just went in with Jimbo from the TFC squad. We're now in the D race, and he's dropping his feather on the leg snapper here, sitting in first overall. And back behind are those SDW youth riders. They're one of the dominant climbing teams in the D race. But Jimbo trying to make a move, and I believe he is the leader in our GC currently right now in the D race, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right, Cade. So he's trying to steal a bit of a march here. Again, trying to break up that D group. We can see some big splits here. I wonder whether it's a bit early to be doing that. I think they've still got another time round the Innsbruckring to go.
Yep.
And that, well, I guess for Jimbo, who's not going to be the strongest climber on the KOM, he's going to want to distance these SDW youth riders who, with being so lightweight, are probably going to be very dominant on that KOM.
Yep, although I do want to mention those SDW youth riders have been getting distanced right here. So I don't know if that's more of an energy saving tactic or if Jimbo really is putting the hurt on some of these other D racers. He definitely made this field stretch out quite a bit. And I see N Machinolo kind of in between the two groups. I believe Machinolo is sandbagging this race, so we can kind of count him out. Because not only is he sandbagging, but I don't think he's a sign up either. So then
Jimbo here, look, just flying through. He's just got to the 0% part. His speed isn't really changing. He's still doing 47, even on this uphill part with that heavier weight helping him to push over. Whereas I think we're going to see Ollie Fussell and the other members, N Tully of the SWD youth squad, they're going to have to push real hard there to try and keep their pace. Of course, the leg snapper is maybe about a 1 minute power effort. So Jimbo being heavier, he's probably got the advantage there, and that's why we're seeing him continually break away. But that KOM at the end, it's going to take them, as you said, probably in the region of 30, 35 minutes to get up there. That's a real hard threshold effort. And those lighter riders there who can maybe put out the bigger watts per kilo for that time are just going to have a clear advantage.
Yeah, I agree. And Jimbo, the gap is starting to come down. He had 8 seconds to Fussell and T. Hoyle D. Holder just a minute ago, and the gap has come down to 3-4 seconds now. So those riders behind are closing the gap, although Jimbo will be leading into the sprint point. So we'll see if he makes another effort. He definitely made an effort last time through the sprint, trying to get the fastest time in the D race there, and I think he was mostly uncontested. Not many other riders going for the sprint. But now Fussell coming around Jimbo along with not many, but a couple other riders there. So Fussell dropping his aero power up and launching into a sprint for a minute there. Now he's back to being seated, but he is pushing close to 7 watts per kilograms, which is a decent sprint for a lighter rider like him in the D race. Aero power up just expired there. I don't think this time will be able to match that of Jimbo, but it was a good effort from Ollie Fussell there.
Yeah, some massive watts there from D riders, and particularly very light, riders. That's a huge amount of power to try and push out.
Yep, and I'm just going to jump back over to our A race now, because they are approaching I believe this is their second lap through, no, this is their third lap over the Innsbruck leg snapper. Just trying to find my bearings here. All right, here we are. We are on the leg snapper with our A riders, and looks like we have a couple riders trying to go off the front. The watts per kilogram's so much larger in the A race than we saw in the D race just a moment ago. The contrast is kind of amazing. And the other thing is, if we were to do another lap, our A racers would probably be lapping our D racers. I know they can't see them, but a lot of what ifs there. But if our A racers could see the D racers and we maybe did a fourth lap of this Innsbruckring here, our A race would start to lap the front of the D race. Just shows the real difference in speed between the categories there.
Yeah, definitely. And that was the place, I think, to really push on the leg snapper to try to break things up. Last time through, try and get away, see if you can get any advantage. We've still got that long snake for the A race, though. And I think that's all going to come back together. So it's really worked out for our lighter riders. They've managed to stay with the heavier, stronger boys at the front. And I think we're going to see those lighter riders now dominate on that KOM and possibly a real change up and a shake up in the individual GC.
The other thing I was looking at there is just some heart rate numbers, because one of the advantages of going hard on the leg snapper is you get a little bit of time to recover. We saw Eddie Hull's heart rate numbers drop nearly 20 beats per minute, which is a decent recovery to make on a short descent like this. He gives himself a little distance and then he can kind of rest on the descent, get into a super tuck, and he's still in a pretty great position in the A race coming into the sprint point. He's right at the front here. So it was an interesting tactic by Eddie Hull, because sometimes if you're a stronger climber, it's best to just go off the front a little so you have a little bit of a gap to work with on the descent.
Yeah, definitely, I'd agree. And here they come in for this sprint again. Let's see if any of them have saved any power ups. I saw a lot of feathers being dropped there. I don't know whether, again, we're going to see any efforts here to try and set that fastest time. Maybe they think, look, the opportunity's passed. That was all for the front. But we have got one rider going off the front very fast, no power up. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to set a very fast time there without a power up. And Heath Flater is, I believe, is in our sprint competition doing quite well at the moment. 17:88. Yeah, no change to that by the looks of things. Or that may be the B competition I'm looking at there. I do apologize. That's just the one that's on my screen.
Yeah, sorry, this was W. Willett from Team Vegan, and he actually just set the third fastest time, so that's some good points for Willett. Is that 6 points, I believe? For
I'll eat my words then. And as I said, I think last week, green legs win green jerseys. Not quite today, but obviously very, very close to it.
Yep, definitely. And really, I think it's a great little play on words there, but it might even be more accurate that green legs win polka dot jerseys in this situation. A lot of the Team Vegan riders are lighter riders who benefit from a little bit of an incline as opposed to coming through this sprint. Although right now we do have a lot of Team Vegan riders up there in the green jersey competition, so we'll see how that plays out later on in the race. Willett getting overtaken by the rest of the field though here.
Yeah, just coming all back together there. They've obviously decided, look, we're going to stay together now. We've brought him back. Hopefully he can recover in that pack. Saw a lot of draft power-ups being dropped there. Obviously the rider's now thinking, if I've still got a power-up, I need to drop that and hope I get a feather at the start-finish banner, because it's not going to be long before we're into that KOM proper.
Yeah, I agree. I think, well, I'm watching Alice Lethbridge right here, and it really is a pretty amazing race from her, because one of our female racers sticking it in the top pack with all the top men and in a great position in this front A pack as well. She's managed to make it through all the splits, and just because, well, I guess she is out of the mixed general classification now because she missed last week's race, but it would be interesting to see if she had managed to race last week where she would have fallen in the GC for the mixed men's and women's standings, because she's definitely a great racer and would have beat out a lot of these men in the GC.
Yeah, definitely. And I think she's going to have a pretty good ride up that KOM as well. I think, as I said last week, Cade, watts are watts. And that's one of the brilliant things about Zwift, that men and women can compete on a pretty much even playing field against one another here. Because if Alice Lethbridge, I mean, I'm sure she'd be beating me in any race that we were in, because she's just going to push bigger watts. Her watts per kilo are going to be higher. And so just fantastic that she can really bring it to the men in that race. And obviously we can still look at that in the races individually on the results and see how she's doing in comparison to the rest of the field.
Yep. And we can definitely see where she comes in overall in today's stage individually as well. Another thing that I just saw there, we were talking about bike choice earlier. I I think you said, would the Tron be your pick for bike choice today?
It's just such a tough choice for this course. Obviously, the Tron is going to help you on the first half, but if you can feel like you can hang with it with something like the Tarmac Pro with the MV 7.4s, really good climbing wheels as well as being quite aero, that might be your best choice because it's going to give you such a clear advantage on that KOM at the end. Now, I guess I take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt some of the Zwift Insider tests that they've done, because it's only a matter of seconds over Tempus Fugit or up the Alpe d'Huez. But hey, look, a second or two in this race could be the difference between first place and in the last race, it was the difference between first place and maybe 10th or 20th in the A race. So it all does add up.
Yeah, well, it's definitely true. Bikes make a difference, but in the end, it comes down to what kind of watts you can push. As you said before, a pretty even playing field. Those couple of seconds could easily be closed by a rider who's just that little bit stronger. So bike choice isn't everything, but it is something that Zwifters often end up obsessing over, and as you said, maybe even a little bit too much.
Yeah, I quite want to see someone on Zwift Steel maybe in one of these races, just pushing out the front and showing that it's what's that Lance Armstrong quote? It's not about the bike. Maybe it was about something else for him, but certainly for these riders on Zwift, it's not about the bike. Go with fashion, maybe. A lot of choosing to ride the Tron bike for that speed and that aero gain. So I'll be interested to see which bike it is that crosses the line at the top of the KOM first.
The other thing is, the Tron bike is a pretty stylish bike with those glowing wheels and frame. I would choose that even if it wasn't the best bike on the day. Occasionally, I think a nice bike just looks great. But also, another thing, and I've talked to my teammates about this a little, some of them purposely don't go with the Tron bike because you can't tell when you're drafting. And that's especially a problem in the team time trials sometimes. Riders like to be able to see when they're drafting. Your avatar has those visual cues depending on whether they're in the drops or the hoods. The drops or the hoods. And with the Tron, you don't get that distinction as to whether or not your avatar is drafting in game. So just another thing to mention in the bike choice, and now I know I'm obsessing over bike choice a little, but I think we're going to switch over to our B race now, because haven't seen them in a little while, and I want to check in and see how they're doing. And then we'll probably head back over to the A race, because they're approaching the start of the KOM pretty soon.
Yeah, so it looks like our B racers have done their final leg snapper. And they are heading well on the way to the KOM as well. Still a pretty big group here. I'm riding with Carol Smeets, who's one of our Team Vegan riders, leader of the Team Vegan badgers that ride in the ZRL Racing League. He had a pretty good day the other day, and it looks like he's having a good day here too, riding in 5th, maybe 8th, 10th, currently right at the front of this pack. Let's see what he can do up the KOM.
All right. We'll keep our eye out for Smeets. And I'm in right now with Jerome Spielmans, who is my favorite, my pick for the win today. And he's also at the front of this group here. And I see Smeets just next to him in that green jersey, orange cap, yellow Tron bike, I believe. These riders getting pretty close to the start of the KOM. Chris, I am just going to take a quick break here. I'll be back in a minute. So if you want to talk about what's going on in this B race for a minute here.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll stick with the B race. As we were saying, a lot of opted for those Tron bikes. You can see the glowing wheels as they get towards this KOM now. So we'll have to see how that works out for them. In fact, I think I can actually see somebody on a Zwift Steel. Is that? Maybe not. Maybe it was a different bike, but I just thought I saw the blue of the Zwift Steel bike. I'd love to see that. Love to see some old school biking on Zwift, showing that it's not about the bike, it's all about the watts. I think this group now is down to maybe 30 or 40. So there is going to be some drafting on this hill, and there are definitely some places where they can catch some draft where it flattens out, but they need to push on those higher parts to really make sure they don't lose the front of this race and lose that draft. Once you're out of the back of this, it could be all over, because I think the group speed is going to stay very high. A couple of team draft there in the red jerseys that we can see, really pushing the pace again. I'm just trying to see if we've got any other team representation. Jerome Spielman there, obviously from L'Equipe. I can see a couple of other riders in similar shirts who I believe are from the same team, L'Equipe Provence. He's been doing really well, and I think Kay's right to pick him out as a favourite for this race.
Yep.
Very strong ride, and going to really put some big watts in on this hill, I'd imagine.
Real quick, Chris, I was just going to ask you, do you know what L'Equipe stands for? I was just curious about that.
I'm afraid I don't. I'd have to put it into Google Translate and see if I can find out.
Yeah, okay. Because I see other L'Equipe riders in this front group, Daniel Hunt up there as well. That's another rider who I considered as a favorite today, although I'm not sure he is a sign-up. Maybe he is, but I think I went with Jerome Spielman's just because of his climbing ability, and we should get to see that on display pretty soon, as the riders are getting pretty close to the start of the KOM. I'd say our A-racers might have even hit the slopes already.
I'm pretty sure the A-riders will already be into it. L'Equipe Provence, a quick Google tells me means the Provence team, Provence being a geographical region in the southeast of France. So obviously some ties to France there. I don't know whether Jerome himself is French, but certainly riding for that French named team. There's currently 3%, just the early slopes here. So I don't know if you want to jump to the A-race to see how they're doing, Cade.
Yep. Sure, and just a quick note, looks like Jerome is Belgian. I believe Belgian is the stripes that go up and down, and Germany goes side to side. So, yeah, looks like Jerome Spielman's is Belgian, but racing for a French team here.
So just in with the A race, you can see that things have now started to break apart. We had that huge blob of about 80 riders before. I've dropped in with Hywell Davies. I'm not sure who you with, Kay.
I'm actually also in with Hywell Davies.
That's fortuitous. And you can see he's leading out the front here. We've got that little snake behind, but you can see on the map in the top right, really broken up. I think that was our big group of 80. And the lighter riders, the hill climbers, are already putting the hurt on the ones at the back there and just pushing out some big numbers. 6 watts a kilo, 7 watts a kilo, 8 at the front I can see there. You can see that Hywell's pushing out 400, 420. My gosh, that's a real effort. Let's see if they can hold that the whole way. They're only about a fifth of the way through this hill, so a long way to go yet. And a long way to go for riders who are at the back wanting to claw back some of this deficit.
Yep, I'm in with Leonard Tugels now. We were watching him a little earlier on. I talked about him for a minute, and he put in some big numbers there for a minute, over 8 watts per kilograms, and he's got a little bit of a gap to some of the rest of the field. Eddie Houle was able to go with him, the Cryo RDT rider who's right up here next to Tugels. And Tugels also wearing those Belgian bands, another Belgian rider. Looks like Hywell Davies, who we were in with earlier, has been distanced about 5 seconds back.
And we said about bike choice here. I think these are both on SL7s, the specialized bike that came out a couple of months ago. Maybe not my first choice for this, but perhaps it's a team choice that they've picked up on and certainly working for them here. And look at this, nearly 7 watts a kilo, just grinding this out and just increasing that gap. 6 seconds back now, maybe, how far is it? 9 seconds to Hywell Davies. So really carving out a bit of an advantage here and setting their stall out that they want to be at the front of this and across that KOM banner first.
And as I said before, Leonard Tugels is not a sign-up, but I don't believe he's a sign-up anyway. I'm just scanning real quick for Eddie Houle in the sign-ups. I don't know if you have any information that I don't about that. Chris? Don't know if is Eddie Houle
just having
here?
a quick. It doesn't look like these two are sign-ups, no. So in fact, the front of our race, maybe that's why we've seen the riders a bit further back down the road haven't lost their cool. They haven't gone for it. They've thought, look, we're in this for the Veganuary GC. And so Hywell Davies, for instance, doesn't need to push crazy hard to catch these guys. He just needs to race his competition.
The other rider I want to mention who's back in that group right next to Hywell Davies right now, I just went back with him, is GTR Gringo, currently leading the overall GC. I was having a chat with him in the comments after the last stream, actually, and GTR Gringo is just his supervillain name. I won't share his real name with you guys, although I'll tell you a secret. If you head on over to the Veganuary table, we have that linked in the description below. I think the results. You can see his real name at the top of the GC standings. But GTR Gringo with an amazing performance here, managing to stay in this front group and maintain his GC position, as Leonard Tugels and Eddie Hool are not currently vying for that position. GTR Gringo does ride for the No Pins R3R squad, and I see a couple of them also in this front group. Not sure who that was that just came up on the right-hand side of the screen. Believe maybe Z Harner. All right, I think we should take a quick look and see how our B racers are doing, because they're now on the slopes of the KOM as well. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, sure. I've again, just because it's an easy name for me to get to, dropped back in with Carol Smeets. He's just riding in about 20th. In fact, he's moving up a little bit. Yeah, about 20th at the moment. Again, we can see exactly the same thing happening with the B race, snaking out that front group and a real long line on that map. I think it's almost exactly the same place where we saw it before. Perhaps those heavier riders just struggling to keep with this. We've got some big numbers at the front, 4.2, 5 from Flatter, C Hardly doing 4.5. And hey, a vegan rider there, a compatriot of mine off the front, Martin van der Vis, pushing 5 watts a kilo. Now, he's going to have to work real hard to keep that. Maybe he's just thinking, look, it's 10%, push hardest at the hardest point. I hope he does keep it, because he's a very strong rider, riding there on the Canyon Air Road. So he's obviously picked a bike that he feels has got a good mix between aero and lightweight. Let's see if that works out for him, and let's see if our B race ends with a Canyon Air Road at the front.
Oh yeah, that was one of the other bikes I wanted to mention earlier on, actually, is that Canyon Air Road. I think that's another solid all-rounder choice for a course like this. You can manage on the flats as well as the climbs, even if it's not the fastest on either.
Yeah, the Canyon Aero, it had a bit of a nerf when it came out. At first, it was actually the fastest climbing bike and pretty much the runaway favorite for most rolling courses. They did just reduce I think they increased the weight slightly.
Yep.
It kept its aero profile. But of course, you could get that bike by doing the Zwift Academy. You just got it for free almost. So obviously, you had to put the work in. But a lot of people have access to this bike now, and it's a real solid choice on a lot of courses. And Martin there just pushing away 4.6 watts a kilo. He is putting in some seconds to these riders behind him. Let's see if he can keep hold of this.
Yep. The other thing I want to mention is Martin van der Vis currently sits in 7th overall in the GC, meaning he is right now our virtual yellow jersey on the road. I know we don't really have a yellow jersey, but he's currently virtually leading the GC competition, so to speak, because 4 seconds would put him in first place ahead of Jeroen Spielmans. He's 2 seconds back from Jeroen Spielmans right now. So if he can hold, now it's out to 6-7 seconds. If he can hold this gap, he will be our leader.
Yeah, definitely a huge effort from Martin. He's just easing off a tiny bit as it flattens out. Obviously, a great tip for anybody watching at home is that you push hardest in the place where the course is hardest. That's where you get the most effort. We can see Martin doing just that. He's obviously dropped his watts slightly. Now it goes back up to 8%. Let's see if he responds. Yes, we can see 5 watts a kilo. So he's pushing on that harder gradient, trying to really consolidate that. 8 seconds on the rest of the pack, and I think now it's down to 9 seconds, maybe even 10 seconds to Jeroen Spielman, who's sitting in maybe 9th or 10th in the whole race.
All right, I want to head back with our D race real quick, and then we'll go back up to the front with the A race, because I believe they're approaching the top of that KOM. Not quite yet, but we have time to check in with the D race real quick, I think. But I don't want to miss the finish to our A race. And actually, now that I look at the D race, it looks like they have not actually hit the slopes of the KOM yet. They're just coming off their 3rd lap of Innsbruckring. Ollie Fussel's still in here, a couple other SDW youth riders, and I'm just scanning the leaderboard. I also see Jimbo from TFC up here as well. So we'll see if Jimbo can maintain his lead in the GC, because I believe one of our female riders is that Evelyn Bunnick, maybe, or not sure if she was my favorite today, but if there's one of our female riders, if she can go off the front here, she could take the GC lead from Jimbo, or at least close the gap quite a bit. I think it's a fairly big gap. I'm going to head in with our C race real quick now, though, because I don't want to miss the A race finish, and I want to check in with some of these lower categories real quick. Do you know who's sitting in second in our D race GC currently?
The D race or the C race? Sorry.
The D race.
Let me just have a check of that. I was just trying to find a C rider to follow. So in the GC, it's Ladine Unser is currently sitting in second.
Yep.
So if she's in that front group, then yeah, she's going to be able to maybe get some time on Jimbo, because I'm expecting her to do pretty well on this hill. It's a big gap, 3 minutes 27, but you know, this KOM is going to take upwards of 30 minutes for some of these D riders. So there's every chance of her putting in a big time here and getting very close to the top of that GC standing.
Yep, and now I see G Cardini from the. I don't think this is a sign up in our C race, but he seems to be going off the front of our C race a little bit here. S. Garvin chasing behind. P. Studworth is the first name I recognize from the TFC squad. But these other riders may be sign-ups. That'll just be confirmed in the results later on. All right, I'm going to head back over to the A race now. Checked in with our C and D race, and we'll get more coverage of them later on as they're coming into the finish. But we still have a little while left for them, so I don't want to miss the finish to our A race. All right, here we are with Highwell Davies. And it looks like our A racers are getting pretty close to the top of this KOM. Maybe 5/6 of the way there. Not too far left. The other thing I want to mention is Lennart Tugels has successfully distanced Eddie Hull. I know these two riders are not signed up, but both great riders, and they are currently off the front. So it looks like Tugels will be finishing up his race pretty soon. It's flattening out here at the top of the KOM.
Yeah, and I think actually that Highwell Davies is at the front of the Veganuary GC at least. Certainly he's the only rider that I can see that's actually in the sign-ups and still within the individual and the team GC competitions. So it's going to be really interesting to see what he does towards the end of this climb. Getting very close now. I can see Psychopath, he's Adam C, one of our riders for Team Vegan, just a little bit behind him. Obviously, he's another big contender in the GC competition. Chris is that C Hana is another no pins R3R rider. In fact, maybe Zach Hana, I do apologize. He's also still in the competition. So 2 R3R riders, they're doing very well, as I think we would expect, pushing hard on the front. 7 watts a kilo. I can see Highwell Davies is now pushing out, really trying to keep with this group, maybe even start to push off the front and get some seconds on them.
Yep, and Lennart Tugels is just approaching the top of the KOM here. He's very close to that banner, and we have a request to check in with Neil Turner in the chat. I think that's the race 3R rider, so we'll go back with Neil Turner after the finish of Lennart Tugels. And the banner is now in sight. So we'll check in with Neil Turner real quick, and then it's back to Highwell Davies and that group, because we don't want to miss their finish either. All right, here we go. Lennart Tugels approaching the banner. He will be your Zwift Power winner for today. Not in the official Veganuary results, though. Here we are back with A. Puch from the Canyon Dev Squad, though. All right, here I just went in with Neil Turner real quick. And it looks like Turner is sitting 48th place overall, just off the back of that group with Highwell Davies and those other riders. So I'm going to head up with Davies right now.
A really big push here. 10, 11 watts a kilo pushing for the line here. Let's see how long he can hold this. He's certainly broken away I think he's currently sitting third in the overall, so definitely he's going to be first in the GC standings. Someone behind him with that feather dropped as well, Jay Kershaw, Pute from the Canyon Dev team. Psychopath really pushing hard. I think they're going to run out of road. I'm not sure whether they're going to bring this back. I can see the banner. He will be pushing so hard. Those legs will be absolutely screaming now as he just tries to keep that gap. Can he do this? Can he keep away? I think he is going to manage it. It's too far now for those other GC riders to bring him back. So an absolutely incredible push there from Hywell Davies to make to the line first. Fantastic racing there, Hywell.
Yep, and Jay Kershaw coming through in second. I believe that was Kay Harner in third. So pretty clear results on the line there. Hywell Davies is your first Veganuary rider through the line. So we're going to head back with the B race now real quick because we don't want to miss their finish either. I'm going to try and jump in with Martin van der Vis because I believe he's still leading in that race.
Looks like, in fact, he's been brought back, and we now have H. Hudson, who's got 13 years there. So I assume he's a 13-year-old who is absolutely destroying the field here. Got 3 seconds on Martin and L. Pedersen, Raj Mackers. So really put a big time into these guys on this hill. Martin, who's my favourite for this finish now, having gotten through to this point, is still riding in third place, pushing out 3.6 watts a kilo. L. Pedersen, I'm just going to check whether they're in the team standings. Yeah, Lucas Pedersen. So he's currently riding in third place, it looks like, in the GC. So this is a big result for him. And he's going to, if he can get ahead of Martin, he's going to take over here at the front of the race.
Yep. Pedersen, I'm watching van der Vis right now, so we can move up with Pedersen. And this is Lucas Pedersen, I believe. Thought he might be sandbagging, but it looks like he is in the correct category. And H. Hudson, 13 years, is now 10 seconds ahead of Pedersen, but I don't know that Hudson is signed up on Zwift Power or in the official Veganuary competition.
That's right. He's not on the Veganuary spreadsheet. So, I mean, but let's not take anything away from him here. If that's right, if he's 13 years of age and he's pushing out 5 watts a kilo up this hill, that is an incredible effort. And he certainly looks like he's got 14 seconds now on the second 2 riders. I don't think there's anything that they're going to be able to do to bring it back. Pedersen putting in a bit of an effort to see if he can catch up. Let's see if van der Vis can keep with Pedersen, because I think now this is our battle. Although, again, riders coming back on van der Vis as well. We've got a couple of riders here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a little bit of a pack pushing through. Did Martin go in a bit too early? Maybe. I can see another Canyon Aero passing him there, ridden by Hetherington. Jerome Spielman, we shouldn't have counted him out. Look at him on that Tron, pushing past Martin. He obviously knew exactly what his 20-minute power was and what he wanted to push here, because he is looking very strong as he glides past with a L'Equipe teammate just up the road. This just coming back together, but I think Martin is not going to be able to jump ahead of Jerome unless he's got something left in his legs that he can really use to explode, like we saw Hywell Davies do at the top there in the A race, to distance them and get those seconds back.
The other thing I just want to mention real quick, I think I'm going to call him our celebrity B racer. We have Rick Wenger in this field somewhere, and I think he's somewhere towards the middle of the field. That's, of course, he is the presenter for No Breakaways, the Zwift Racing Tips and Tricks channel. And I actually think in the first email sent out from Veganuary, there was a link to his channel, so you should definitely check that out as well. But back to the race, Jerome Spielmans of the L'Equipe team has brought back the gap to Lucas Pedersen. And R. Hetherington from Race 3R is now going off the front. He made the bridge with Spielmans, and he's trying to chase down Hudson now. I don't know if Hetherington is a sign-up, but it looks like this might be a female racer. I'm going to see if I can check on that for you. Chris, are there any other groups farther back behind these riders? What's happening in the chase group right now?
Well, I was just riding with Martin again, who's just been distanced a little bit. If we drop back a bit further, we've got R. Fisher is a little way off the front now, maybe 20 seconds off that front group. E. Flatter, who is one of our rider who I think was doing pretty well, yet leading the sprint competition, has done pretty well here in the hill climb. I'm not sure where they actually fall in the KOM competition at the moment, certainly not that high, but riding in 16th here, only about 20-30 seconds off the front of the race. So that's a really good result from what may be a more sprint oriented rider. Really pushed hard here and really put in a big effort on this KOM.
The other thing, I just want to correct myself. Ross Hetherington is not a female racer, but he is pushing some amazing watts up here with Pedersen and Spielman's, just getting passed by those two riders. And this really is the race for the win in the Veganuary competition and the race for the Veganuary GC, as H. Hudson is not registered on Zwift Power, or maybe registered on Zwift Power, but not registered in the Veganuary spreadsheet. And the other thing I want to note is they are bringing back H. Hudson. The gap is down to 16 seconds now. These riders are really trying to kick it into gear before the finish. 15-second gap now to Hudson.
Yeah, and it's just some amazing pushing here by the R3R rider and these two L'Equipe riders. I wonder if the L'Equipe riders can do a kind of 1-2 punch here, and maybe one of them try and go off the front, perhaps Pedersen helping out his teammate Spielman by giving a bit of an effort so that Hetherington puts in something to try and catch up, and then letting Jerome sprint for the line, but certainly staying together. And as you say, this is going to be 1, 2, 3 in the Veganuary 2021 stage standings for race 3. I don't think anybody's going to be able to bring them back now. Getting very close to the line. I think it's just 1 or 2 more turns here, and then we will be able to see the banner. So let's see what they have left in their legs. I think H. Hudson, fantastic effort from him there. He is going to definitely storm this and get away with the Zwift Power win, or indeed the Zwift win. I don't know if he's on Zwift Power, but let's see what these 3 riders can do. We've got Socks for Watts rider is about 7 seconds back. Martin, my pick, is now 15 seconds back. So it looks like he was just a little bit too hard that he went in at the beginning of this. Hetherington, Spielman's and Pedersen have definitely judged this exactly right.
Well, the other thing I want to mention real quick is I wonder if that 1-2 is kind of what we just saw from Pedersen, because he definitely...
Look, he was off the front now, and he's really forced the issue. Maybe he was thinking, look, I'm not going to sit around and wait for you boys to sprint. So pushing here, pushing hard. But Spielman's had to power up and is off him.
Sorry about that. Yep.
Can he hold this to the line? 10 watts a kilo. Can he just do? He's doing exactly the same as Hywel Davies here. And it looks like Hetherington and Pedersen have given up the ghost here. And it's going to be another win for Spielman's. And he's going to increase that lead that he has by a good couple of seconds, certainly into the 15, 20, maybe even 30 seconds over some of his closest rivals. An absolutely amazing ride there from Spielman's.
Definitely. And the other thing I want to mention, you were talking about that 1-2 punch, and I think that might have been what we saw, because Lucas Pedersen definitely went hard for a minute there. Got the gap to Hudson, the rider off the front, down to 15 seconds from 23, and then kind of dropped off, let the gap go back out to 23 seconds. Made Hetherington chase, and then I think Hetherington just didn't quite have enough left at the finish. Could have been some interesting team tactics that we just saw there, and it definitely got the better of Hetherington. Jerome Spielman's, my favorite on the day, was able to make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. Just you may be right there with the kind of 1-2 punch. And yeah, just it's so tough once you get on the gears there. Once you get your acceleration in, you've just got to hold that power all the way to the line, and perhaps just went a little bit too early. I mean, Jerome Spielman's, though, that 10 watts a kilo sprint seemed to just go on forever. Amazing stuff.
Here we are with Sam Garvin. This is our leader in the C race currently. It looks like Garvin is up here with G. Cardini. I don't believe that Cardini is registered, and I'm not sure that Garvin is registered either. But Garvin is on Zwift Power, so leading in the Zwift Power.
Our first rider in the Veganuary standings is actually P. Sudworth, who is a little bit back on the road, riding on his own. He's got Karen Loomis behind him, but I believe that is currently the lead in the Veganuary race. I don't think the GC standings were Patrick Harvey, Jamie Watson, Warren Honey, and I don't think any of them are at the front of this race. So P. Sudworth putting in a big effort here with 20 seconds plus on any of his competition. I can see a vegan crocodile 26 seconds behind. Who's that? That's Evelyn Bunnick. So amazing ride from her. She's absolutely destroyed this. Probably going to take over the women's standing again. I don't know. I haven't seen Cheryl Muldoon in this race yet. So she's put in a huge effort here. Currently riding in 11th. That probably puts her around third or fourth in the overall GC standings. So an incredible effort from her.
Now we see P. Odd Astra has also come to the front here, which I thought was an interesting move, and I don't see that rider in the Veganuary spreadsheet, so I don't believe they are a sign-up. But as you said before, Philip Sudworth is currently leading in the GC. He's about a minute off of these riders in the front here, and I believe Sam Garwood not registered in the Veganuary spreadsheet, so it will be Philip Sudworth extending his lead, I'm assuming. I don't think there's any other riders that are going to be able to come from behind. Although I do see Patrick Harvey from the BRT squad. He's about 20 seconds off of Sudworth. So Harvey also up there, if I'm not mistaken. And we'll see if Patrick Harvey can maybe put in a little push, close down those 20 seconds before the line. I'm going to head back with Sudworth now.
Yeah, so just picking up on that, in terms of the GC standings for the sign-ups, we've got Sudworth, then Harvey, and then I think it's Jay Feltus and Evelyn Bunnick just behind him. So I think there's going to be a real fight here for third place, because Jay Feltus and Evelyn Bunnick are those third and fourth riders. Let's see who it is that comes out on top here.
Yep, and for now, I'll go back with Jay Feltus for a minute here, the Race 3R rider, back with Evelyn Bunnick. Bunnick is in the green vegan jersey, by the way, for those of you watching. And they're in with a little bit of a group here, although they're going to be the riders racing for that. It's the third spot in the GC, if I'm not mistaken, right? But it looks like they're about 30 seconds back from Patrick Harvey. And Harvey having a hard time closing that gap to Philip Sudworth. It's sitting steady around 20 seconds. So not much time. Time is running out here for Patrick Harvey to close that gap down. So I think Philip Sudworth might be able to maintain his spot as number one on the leaderboard for the TFC team. And he's wearing that yellow TFC jersey to prove his GC standing. Just kind of a coincidence there. Our leader wearing the yellow jersey.
Yeah, I don't know whether the TFC had that in mind, that they'd always look like they were riding in yellow, but a great jersey and a great ride from Philip Sudworth. As you say, it's now 20 seconds back to P. Harvey. Sudworth putting in 3.8 watts a kilo, Harvey only 3. So I think it's going to be very difficult for him to draw that back unless he's got a big effort in him. He's obviously with a little group, so he's maybe getting a bit of a draft there, not quite on a steeper section of road, but I think it may be difficult for him to close down. 17 seconds now, it looks like. So he has brought it back a bit as Philip Sudworth gets onto the 10% section of this final part of the climb.
Yeah,
but
I think
it's a long way.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying it's a long way for him to go up the road.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the only reason that gap started to come down was that Sudworth hit that 10% gradient while Patrick Harvey was still pushing on maybe 7%. So now that Patrick Harvey has hit that steeper section on the road, the gap out to 26 seconds. So it looks like Philip Sudworth might have this one locked up today.
Definitely. Just a supreme effort on this hill, pushing right at the very top of the Cat C power that you can do. 3.2 there. He was going over it before, obviously up to about 3.8. So I think this is a really, he's again, just like we saw with Jerome Spillman's, he's just judged this effort absolutely perfectly. He's obviously gone hard over those leg snappers to make sure he keeps in contention, and he knows exactly what he can push here and just run away with the race. Really great riding.
Yep. I'm just seeing if I can respond to one of our questions in the chat real quick. Wilbert Tolner. I did it again. I just made a video with Wilbert recently, actually, and I've had such a hard time pronouncing his name. But Wilbert Tolner in the chat just asked confirmation on the results in the A race. Was it Tugels, Hool, and then Davies? And the answer to that is yes in terms of Zwift Power results. But in terms of the Veganuary spreadsheet, Highwell Davies taking the win there, because neither Poole or Tugels are registered for Veganuary. So I hope
Yeah,
that
so
clarifies your question, Wilbert.
yeah, just for a bit more explanation there to Will, but obviously there's a Swift Power League that anybody can join up to just by riding in the races. But we've also done a sign-up competition so that there's a Team GC that runs over the whole series, and obviously Highwell's in there. Can just see Philip Subworth dropping a feather. It must be like a little feather of triumph there. He doesn't even really need it. No one's bringing back 21 seconds now. But there's the banner in front of him, and what a great feeling that must be to have just completely destroyed the competition on this climb. Obviously, this was where he knew he was going to shine. I'm not sure where that's going to take in the overall rankings. It looks like he was only 3 seconds off of Patrick Harvey, so a really big dent that he's going to put in. He's going to jump right into first, and his competition is going to have some work to do on the Queen stage next week to bring that back.
We can take a look at Feltis and Bunnick after this. I think we have enough time before the finish to the D race as well. So great win from that TFC rider there, Philip Sudworth. He totally blew away second place. But now Jay Feltis from Race 3R and Evelyn Bunnick are going to be the two riders that are competing for that third place spot in the GC.
Yeah, and dropping back to Feltis, I think we can see that he's just put in a little bit of an effort. He's got 10 seconds on her now, and I think there goes an arrow from Feltis. I really don't think Evelyn's going to be able to bring that back. So it looks like third place in the Veganuary 2021 competition is going to be tied up by Feltis. But I have to say, for my, she's my teammate, and so obviously I'm on her side here. But what an incredible effort from Evelyn in this C race, coming in fourth, I think, in the Veganuary standings, and just really putting in a huge effort on this hill, just riding with her into the banner.
All right, Feltis is just coming through the banner now as well. So Feltis will be taking that third place overall in the Veganuary individual GC after that, and we're going to head back with the D race now. Going to try and jump in with Ollie Fussell. And here we go. Ollie is sitting in fifth place overall right now, it looks. And D. Siddell is the rider off the front. Right now, I'm just checking in our D live standings here, and I do not see D. Siddell. I don't know if is Siddell a sign up? I'm not sure if this rider is actually Swift Power or Veganuary at all.
I can't see them in the individual GC results, so it doesn't look like they were signed up to the league, certainly.
All right, and then the next rider back, N. Machinolo. I'm going to check in the D results real quick, but I don't think that this rider is a sign up either. Just checking, trying to get over to the D spot on the spreadsheet. Scanning the top few spots, and I do not see N. Machinolo anywhere here in the spreadsheet for the D race. So I think this is another rider we can probably ignore in terms of Veganuary results. And I also didn't see him registered on Swift Power, so going back went a little bit too far. Here we go with. Go ahead.
I think I can help you that I think Ollie Fussell is our leader in the Veganuary 2021 competition. So really great to see that from him after he had that mechanical last time. We knew he wanted to put in a big effort here. I'm just trying to see who else in this D race is anywhere near there. I think the next down the line, so first place currently in our Veganuary competition is Ollie Fussell, and then it's his teammate who's just behind him, H. Bottoms. He's got a bit of a gap on him now, 118. So Ollie Fussell's just putting in a huge effort here. And we can see that Bottoms is actually leading Jimbo, who's another 17 seconds back. So I think that's our 1, 2, 3 in the Veganuary GC competition. I can see Hayton there, A. Hayton of the ART Fusion team. He is still in that running as well, currently sitting in 6th place with 5 minutes gap. So certainly he's not going to make up any time on Jimbo, but it looks like Ollie Fussell and Bottoms are going to bring back some of that time on our GC leader.
Yep, definitely. Fussell did have to take the slowest time from last week, so he'll most likely no longer be in the runnings for the GC, but we could be seeing a new KOM leader at the end of the day here. Ollie Fussell doing quite well in that KOM series, and I think his teammate Henry Bottoms, who is that rider you mentioned sitting in second currently, is also up there as well. I'm just checking in our KOM competition right now.
So Ollie's currently 6th and Henry Bottoms is currently 8th. So it's going to be, yeah, I think with the 20 points that Ollie may well end up getting here for that sprint competition, that's going to take him up to 27. Jimbo on 18 though. So all he needs is 10 points. And if he crosses the line 3rd, it may well be that he just keeps hold of that place in the sprint competition, in the QM competition, sorry.
Well, we will have a new leader on the day though. I'm pretty confident in that, because I have not seen Ryan Began anywhere near the front of this field.
Yes, indeed, you're quite right. He had dropped back quite a way. So it looks like we are going to have a new leader. You're quite right. But is it going to be Ollie Fussell? Can anybody just bring back Jimbo and take the lead? I don't think they can. I can see here that the next rider down the road, Benoit, I'm not sure if they're in our standings, but certainly he's got over a minute on them. And then Hayton is 1 minute 16 back. So I think that's our next rider. So it looks like if things remain the same, Jimbo is going to end up with 10 points to add to his current 18 to take him on to 28. Ollie Fussell is going to go from 7 points up to 27, it looks like. So it's going to be really tight at the top of that KOM competition. As you said, Kay, this particular stage going to turn things on its head there and really shake things up, and that's going to leave everything open in the Queen stage next week.
Yeah, I agree. And A. Hayton is the rider I'm watching right now from the Art Fusion team, that 3rd place on the road currently, I believe. I was just checking to see if Hayton would be able to close the gap to Jimbo, and it looks like 1 minute and 20 is going to be too much for Hayton to close in these final moments of the climb. Or I shouldn't say final moments quite yet. We've still got a little ways to go, but Hayton hitting the steep part of this climb. So I'm going to head back up with Ollie Fussell, because he will be finishing not too far out from that KOM banner. Gradient up to 7% here, so getting a little steeper. And Fussell is riding with a Co. I don't believe Co is signed up on either Veganuary or Zwift Power, but a great ride from him there as well.
Yeah, he's not round up, but you can see there Fussell just pushing past him, taking the lead, and easing off a little bit, maybe just thinking, look, you can see the muscles on ACO. Perhaps Ollie thinking, hey, you're a stronger rider. You can sit in front of me and give me a nice big draft when the road starts to level out a bit. Ollie Fussell pushing hard here, 3.5, 3.8. Some incredible watts there from a junior rider. And again, that's going to be something that stands him in great stead on the next race as well.
Yep, and if you want to just remind us real quick which course we're going to be doing for the Queen stage, because that is where I think a lot of this riding will go down. We could see some new gaps in the GC starting to form there.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going across to the UK with the London Pretzel. So the riders are going to have 2 opportunities at a sprint there, and they're also going to have Box and Fox Hill to contend with. So a good deal of climbing, not quite as long as the Innsbruck KOM, but it's, can you do it twice? Here, they've just got to push to the top and then they're done. On London, they're going to have to push up that hill, then push up the reverse and still make it to the finish line. So a different kind of challenge and a much longer race.
Yep. And I think Fussell's strategy might be paying off right here, as he still has Co's wheel to follow as the gradient dips down to 3%. So now that drafting will be more effective. Having a wheel to follow here can't hurt, because if he were to target the GC, he'd have a lot of time to make up. I don't think that's really very realistic for Ollie Fussell. Looks like he's 24 minutes back. But
it looks like he's really intent on keeping with ACO. I just saw his watts jump up there to about 5 watts a kilo as the gap was opening. Definitely wants to stay on his wheel to just get nice and fast there and get as much time as he possibly can. I mean, look, never say never. He's away down the GC, but it looks like he's got a lot of spirit and a lot of heart. He's certainly going to be winning the KOM competition today, and we'll have to see how he's done on the sprint competition. But yeah, a fantastic ride from him, and just keeping on the wheel of ACO here. Maybe thinking, look, I'm going to come with a big finish here. Let's see who's going to win this when it goes to a sprint to the line.
The other thing I just want to note real quick, I know we talked about this a little earlier in the stream, but 5 watts a kilo for Ollie Fussell is about 130, 140 watts. So really, the watts never get up above 200 unless he's really sprinting for it. And now we can see the banner. So it'll be interesting to see if Fussell tries to outsprint Ko. I don't know if it's really necessary as Ko is not registered, but it'd still be fun to watch.
Yeah, well, this is Swift, Kate, so it's always a race, and it's always interesting to see who goes. Ollie Fussell now is pushing to the front. Ako not responding yet, perhaps thinking he needs to hold on just a little bit, maybe ride in his draft, wait for him to go, and then push hard to catch up in that draft. We're still on 4% though, where I think Ollie Fussell probably has the advantage. 6 watts a kilo now, I just saw him push up to, so maybe a little of a push there for the line. Ako still not responding, perhaps just worn out from this climb, and I think Ollie Fussell is going to take that position and come in 5th overall for these Zwift standings. There we go, seeing settle. I think he did get over 200 watts there, so well done. Hopefully there's a badge for that, Ollie.
The other thing I want to mention, his BPM at 202 right now. I know he's definitely a younger rider, but those numbers just scare me a little. Really high heart rate from Ollie Fussell. All right.
Yeah, it's been about, my heart rate was that high, Kate, definitely.
Say that again?
I said it's been about a decade since my heart rate was that high, definitely.
Yep. All right. So that concludes our stream of Veganuary stage number 3. Before you go, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the Zwift Race Place so you don't miss out on any of these Veganuary live streams or other videos from us. We'll be back next Saturday with live coverage and commentary of Veganuary stage number 4, the Queen stage, as Chris just said, on the London Pretzel. All right, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.